Hello and good evening, everybody. Wow, we have a full house. May I request everybody to take their seats and settle down? I know it's an exciting evening. Hello and welcome to the 7th edition of the Economic Times Startup Awards. All of you know, we're back in Bengaluru after a 2-year COVID-induced hiatus. My name is Suresh Venkat, like the announcer said. It's good to be back on stage. A warm welcome to our Chief Minister, Mr. Basavaraj Bommai. It's good to be back in Bengaluru, good to be back on stage, good to be back amongst the brightest stars in the startup galaxy in India. Mr. Chandrasekhar, welcome to the show. Once again, may I request all of you to take your seats in the back. If you can find your seats, please sit down. Right, let's get on with the show. Before we start, let's take a quick look at the year gone by. Now, in the year gone by, 2 yogis made headlines. One for pulling off the Himalayan task. Once again, I have a request. May I request everybody to settle down, to find your seats. I know it's a crowded house. Do find your seats and settle down. Minister Vaishnaw, welcome to you, sir. Good to see you. We have Tejasvi Surya in the house. Welcome, sir. Good to see you. All right, let's continue. Like I was saying, 2 yogis made headlines this year. One yogi pulled off the Himalayan feat of being re-elected as the Chief Minister of India's largest state. The other yogi made headlines for running the country's largest stock exchange from the Himalayas. Now, speaking of stock exchanges, we had some big-ticket IPOs last year. Many of them saw dramatic listing gains, followed by even more dramatic falls. Investors who cheered on companies who valued themselves at a zillion times earnings suddenly found themselves saying, the government shouldn't have let us invest in these companies, should have warned us not to play with fire. Tough luck. Speaking of IPOs, there's a saying in the startup world now, either you can swim with the sharks or you can sink with the stones. What you cannot do is this, be both a shark on TV, yell at bank employees, try to fire your own CEO, and then say, I don't want my stock options clawed back. Tough luck once again. Oh, well, then you say, Mr. Vaidyanathan, welcome to the show. I can see you smiling in the front row. Oh, well, then you say, it's just another day in the life of a startup founder. Well, good for you, because today we have India's best startup founders right here in the room with us. Take a look around you. These are the men and women who make India, the leading destination for risk capital, talent, and technology. Before I tell you any more, I'd like to thank our sponsors and partners. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, IDFC First Bank. Thank you to our hospitality partner, the Leela Palace Bengaluru, our knowledge partner, Traction, and our telecast partner, ET Now. If any of you would like to go social with today's awards, use the hashtag ET Startup Awards. We're also streaming live on ET Now and on our website, etstartupawards.com. Quick reminder, even though the third wave of COVID may be well behind us, please follow basic COVID protocol, wash your hands regularly, wear your mask when you're not eating, and if somebody doesn't want to shake hands with you, fist bump is the answer. Don't get upset that they don't want to touch you. The ET Startup Awards was set up in 2015 to further ET's commitment to entrepreneurship and young leadership. Through the Startup Awards, we strive to identify India's most deserving startups and celebrate the ambition and skills of some of India's best-known entrepreneurs and investors. The ET Startup Awards recognize awards excellence in 8 categories. Startup of the Year, Woman Ahead, Top Innovator, Bootstrap Champ, Midas Touch, Social Enterprise, Best on Campus, and Comeback Kid. Now, like the last 2 years, we've added a 9th category this year as well. It's called COVID-led Business Transformation to recognize startups that have strived to find solutions amidst the pandemic. The jury for the ET Startup Awards reads like a veritable list of who's who in India's startup pantheon. The jury was comprised of Nandan Nilekani, Nitin Kamath, Satyan Gajwani, Amit Agarwal, Sachin Bansal, Anu Hariharan, Deepinder Goyal, Ankiti Bose, Harsh Jain, G.V. Ravishankar, and Gokul Rajaram. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury who are here in the audience with us, thank you very much for your service. And now to set the stage for this August gathering, may I call upon Satyan Gajwani, Vice Chairman of Times Internet, to say a few words. Satyan, may we have you on stage?
Wow, full house. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our esteemed guests, Chief Minister of Karnataka, Shri Bommai, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw, Union Cabinet Minister, Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Minister of State, stars of the tech world, ladies and gentlemen, and we look forward to welcoming Mr. Piyush Goyal, Union Cabinet Minister, who will join us in some time. Welcome, everybody, to the 7th Annual ET Startup Awards. It's so exciting to actually be here physically with all of you and actually engage with each other and feel each other's presence. The energy is incredible, and we're very grateful for all of you for joining us. I was talking to Kunal from CRED, and he was telling me that today is March 12th, 2022, and on March 12th, 2020, was the day that most of the big startups in Bangalore shut down their offices. We have gone through exactly 2 years of genuine upheaval. We've had lockdowns, masks up, and uncertainty of coming back to work, not going back to work, working from home, coming to the office for a few days a week, every day. And yet, through 2 years of uncertainty, and we look at where we are today, the Indian digital economy and India as a whole is in an incredibly formidable place. We're now the world's largest, fastest growing economy. And even as the world goes through enormous upheaval and uncertainty, oil prices, India is blessed to have over $630 billion of Forex reserves, insulating us from the geopolitical uncertainty that we see today. As we think about the recovery that we've seen over the last few years, startups have been more than ever before at the forefront. Last year, we had 44 unicorns, taking us to 83 unicorns as a whole, which are now worth nearly $300 billion. And I'm sure in the year to come, we'll see many more. More than just big valuations, we hit a new milestone this year with an unprecedented amount of public issuances, specifically of our startups. They have captured all of our attention, and we've had volatility. But with it comes transparency, comes sunlight on our businesses, and a higher standard that our businesses have to actually meet to become not just high-value companies, but strong, sustainable, healthy companies for our ecosystem. And more than just the unicorns, there is grassroots excitement for startups all around the country today at an unprecedented high. 5 years ago, according to formal government disclosures, there were 733 startups. This year, there were 14,000. And more than just new startups, they're not just coming from the big cities, but they're coming from small towns. And accessibility of connectivity is fundamentally changing the economy of entrepreneurship. More than just new startups coming up, we're seeing a new diversity in the startups that we see today. Instead of just consumer companies, we're seeing companies in exciting spaces like artificial intelligence, drone technology, space technology, clean technology, and much more. The current geopolitical events of the world have also taught us the importance of domestic enterprise. And in a time when interconnectivity is both an asset and a liability, the strength and rigor of our domestic startup ecosystem is that much more important. The journey of starting companies is not for the faint-hearted. As many of the entrepreneurs here will tell you, it requires grit, resilience, patience, and determination. Certainly, the last 2 years have showed us enormous highs and enormous lows, and I'm sure the next 2 years will show that as well. But that's exactly why we're here today. We're here to recognize the best and brightest stars of our next generation of leaders in our country. I'm also especially looking forward to the remarks of our esteemed guests, and particularly as we see this economy reach a new level of maturity. I'm excited to hear how policy can help propel this industry's growth further as a sector and as a contributor to the country as a whole. Thank you for everyone for joining, and congratulations to the winners of this year's awards. And here's to a great night ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Satyan. May I now invite the Minister of State for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Electronics and IT, Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, onto stage for a fireside chat with Surabhi Agarwal, Editor Technology of the Economic Times. Mr. Chandrasekhar. All right, Surabhi, over to you.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, for being here. It's a real privilege to have you join us for the ET Startup Awards. So you've donned many hats. You started off by being in the Silicon Valley, developing Pentium chips. And then you were one of the first telecom entrepreneurs when you launched BPL Mobile. Right from there to being a privacy activist, a parliamentarian for 15 years, and an avid investor in India's startup ecosystem. Now that you've moved to the other side, and you're soon going to, complete 1 year in the government, I want to ask you, what is it that the government should do, or rather not do, to make sure that this momentum in the startup ecosystem is accelerated and not disturbed?
So, thank you, Surabhi, for having me over. Thank you to the ET for bringing the ET Startup Awards back to Bengaluru. This is where it should be. And I suggest that you just do this permanently in Bengaluru. It will solve a lot of problems. To all the friends who've come from outside Bengaluru, welcome. To all my friends from Bengaluru, namaskara. Ellarigu namaskara. Look, Surabhi, one of the best ways to understand what we are experiencing today, and this, as Satyan very beautifully put out there, is to also look back at the last 7 years on where we started from. And if you just look at 2014, and I'm not trying to make a political speech here, but it's a reasonable ask to look back at where we reached, how we've reached here. The government has done tremendous things over the last 7 years to create an overall enabling environment of what has now just caught the imagination of not just Indian entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs all over the world. And which is to create an environment where capital is available, innovation is encouraged, and through a mix of government policies, and as Satyan mentioned, this reach of the internet to the furthest parts of India, we have created what we are experiencing and seeing today. And I say this in the context of what was, let's say, in 2010, 2011, there was this famous research report from the Credit Suisse that was called House of Cards. And I like saying this example again and again. There was this data that said that 97% of India's banking system's net worth was corralled by 9 families and their borrowings. Now, you have in 2022 a situation where every young entrepreneur, every idea has a reasonable opportunity to get financed, has a reasonable opportunity to grow, and frankly, the system is not so much of a risk or a disabler of this promise or this aspiration as much as the capabilities of the individual are. So we've reached, in my opinion, a time and a place in the evolution of the Indian economy and the innovation ecosystem where the entrepreneur and his idea has a more than reasonable chance of succeeding. Moving forward, I think you will see the government outlining more policies and expanding the opportunity space through its own consumption of technology and through policies that will allow other areas of technology to be exploited by startups and entrepreneurs.
So like you said that there is a enabling ecosystem and a lot has happened in the last few years to create that ecosystem. But yet there are many, many challenges. One of the biggest challenges is that we don't have clarity when it comes to policies. For instance, the data protection bill, the e-commerce policy. I'm told that the Tatas are not able to sell their own Titan watches if the draft of the e-commerce policy is to be followed. Homegrown companies, our own social media companies are very concerned because they might be termed as publishers and be liable for each and every content a user posts. There are challenges on compliance front, there's non-personal data issues. So the industry is waiting for clarity and the government is not moving ahead on this. So could you just clear the air on this?
No. So, I can clear the air, but it's not going to give you any more clarity than you have today, in the sense that I don't think there is any lack of clarity. one of the things that the government is very clear about is this momentum of innovation, this momentum of growth of the startup ecosystem. We will not do anything knee-jerk. We will not do any policy making that will come even remotely as a speed bump or retard this momentum. So that is in itself, in my opinion, a clarity. Now, there is this I'm always fascinated by this recent obsession with personal data protection, because all the way from 2010 to the most part of 2017, everybody thought privacy and data protection was an academic issue that was left to the elite to worry about. And it's good that now everybody has joined this mainstream discussion. But I think the reality of policy making is somewhere in between, which is having no protection at all for the citizen consumer and having an absolutist approach to all of these issues. And the reality of policy making and rules and regulations is somewhere in between. Because what we don't want to do is, to use the quintessential phrase, throw the baby out with the bathwater. It is clear, as the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister said, the next 10 years are going to be India's decade. And make no mistake about that, it is going to be India's decade. And so we want to be very measured. We want to be absolutely clear about every policy step that we make, that it adds to the momentum that we have, rather than in any way create any disruption or ambiguity. So I think over the coming months, you will see a data governance framework be rolled out. You will see all of these elements that are required to celebrate entrepreneurship and expand entrepreneurship be rolled out very systematically with public consultation, with stakeholders' involvement, as well as all of the elements that are required to secure the citizens' right to privacy and other aspects of their data privacy.
Right. So that's some really strong statements coming from the minister. Thanks for that. But like you said, that the next decade is going to be a tech decade. And if you look at the public goods that India has produced, be it Aadhaar, UPI, it's a fantastic case of how the government has created these digital rails on which the private sector has innovated, be it UPI, and we've seen the rise of companies like Paytm and Google Pay and PhonePe, etc. What is your vision when it comes to these public goods? What is the government's next steps on this?
Thank you for asking that question, Surbi. And I think this is a question that needs to be explained in in a slightly different way. When the Honorable Prime Minister launched Digital India in 2014, he laid out broadly 3 objectives. And I just want to share this for those who don't know, and if those who know, please bear with this repetition of this. He wanted technology to empower and transform citizens' lives. And so therefore, he wanted technology to be deployed for better governance and better democracy. So that was one. The second pillar was that he wanted technology to create more opportunities for entrepreneurship, investment, jobs, and therefore expand the digital economy pie. And the third was that he wanted India to be a world-leading nation in the race for technology in certain areas of technology. Now, if you look at the first part, between 14 and let's say 19, before COVID, the government rolled out in its digitizing of the government process, Aadhaar-linked identity authentication, and that, based on that, a large number of public services, including defying this conventional wisdom narrative of democracies being leaky when it came to delivering subsidies. Then it launched UPI, and it launched the entire digital payments ecosystem. What has happened as a consequence of both those efforts at driving digital technologies into government is the fallout has been that you've created an ecosystem of entrepreneurship, investments in the fintech space, in the digital payment space, in the payment service provision space. So this model of the government accelerating its digitization, government accelerating the digitization of digital to citizen interfaces, that is going to be a tremendous force multiplier for entrepreneurship of the ecosystem around that. So if to go back to your question number 1, what can the government do? One of the things the government is doing and will continue to do is to accelerate the digitization of its own activities and its own governance and public service delivery processes.
Sure. Apart from accelerating its own governance and which will fuel the country's digital ecosystem, I want to understand from you that what is your vision for new technologies like metaverse and Web3? I'm sure many VCs and investors sitting here will vouch for it. That on a daily basis, pitches are piling up when it comes to these kind of companies who are very, very interested in exploring the next phase of the internet. How can India take a lead in these new areas?
So I want to start by saying, I think if you're a dispassionate observer of nations and the deployment of technology and the digital economies, you will find that India is today, and it's being widely acknowledged, India is today one of the preeminent countries in terms of using technology and being at the forefront of innovation. I think it is clear from our understanding that we will be leading the charge into Web 3.0. We will be leading the charge into all of the innovations around the internet. But I want to just add to your question by saying that the decade is not just about the internet. The decade is not just about the metaverse and Web 3.0 and discussions around crypto. There is, as I think Satyan mentioned, there is artificial intelligence. There is a whole set of opportunities that are emerging today because of this geopolitical shift away from China's domination on electronics to creating alternate destinations and supply chains for electronics around ESDM, electronics design and innovation, around semiconductor design and innovation, around AI, around deep tech in areas like supercomputing and quantum computing. So I tend to say to groups of entrepreneurs and startups who meet me that while consumer tech and the internet will remain exciting and there are going to be areas that will continue to expand, don't forget that there is an interesting opportunity that is now emerging in front of India post-COVID, which is around the entire electronics device, ESDM, semiconductor space. And as you know, the government of India under Prime Minister Modi has put $30 billion of record capital to support the electronics and semiconductor space. So a lot of innovation is going to come out of there, and I suspect it's not just about Web 3.0 or Metaverse as exciting as they are. I think the excitement is also in these other areas.
Sure, I think that's one of the areas where we miss the bus and it's a good opportunity to catch up. You mentioned crypto and I'm very, very tempted to ask you that in the budget we had a tax imposed on digital assets. There's also been a little bit of confusion with people in terms of whether India has legalized crypto, because in the budget we also spoke about a digital currency, but we don't know what's happening to the crypto bill. So could you just help us understand this space?
It's a little above my pay grade to comment on this, but it's a different ministry and it's a different. But I was in a room when the similar question was asked of the Honorable Finance Minister just a few days ago in Bengaluru, and I'll just verbatim repeat here on her behalf what she said. She said that the ministry is in consultation on a crypto bill, and that consultation is with stakeholders in the crypto community as well as the Reserve Bank of India. And when, at the right time and the right place, there will be a crypto bill or not, as the case may be. But I just want to add my 5 cents to crypto, and I said some things after the budget as well. The legality or the illegality of crypto is really about who is buying crypto and how he or she is buying crypto. In India today, we are not a fully convertible currency. And therefore, if you're buying a dollar-denominated asset, whether it's real estate, whether it is equities, whether it is cryptocurrencies, you have to be pretty sure that you're doing this legally. There is a law called FEMA on the statute book for precisely that reason. So you have to be sure that if you are buying crypto, you're doing it through a legitimate RBI-approved route, or it's through the LRS scheme where you are allowed $250,000 a year. If there is a third way you are buying crypto or you are acquiring crypto, the odds are that you are already afoul of the law. And that's something that you may want to consult with your lawyers. That's the only point I can say.
All right. So just moving back to the startup ecosystem, last year we've seen record unicorns. We've also seen record IPOs, and some of those have kind of not fared very well. Yes. Do you think this rush towards moving towards the public markets would force companies to prioritize corporate governance and profits over valuations? What's your take?
I don't think so. I think, I mean, no, I think diversification of sources of funding and financing for startups is something that is required. It is part of what I would think is necessary for a sustainable startup and innovation ecosystem. I wouldn't lose too much sleep about valuation going up and being overpriced or underpriced. That thing is hitting me on the, yeah. Okay, no. I thought that was deliberate or something. So I wouldn't worry about that. I think it's probably healthy for startups to have multiple sources of capital, not depend on private equity alone. Public markets are a good way for them to get financed. In terms of companies having, if you hit a public market, to be more disciplined, bit more rigorous in your management, that is absolutely true. Whether that necessarily accelerates the path to profitability, I don't believe so. There are many startups that are IP driven and that are targets for acquisitions, and the value is really not the profitability or the cash flow, but is the intellectual property of the technology. So that may not be as big of a driver, but rigor in terms of management, discipline, all of that I think is something that public markets very quickly teach you if you're a startup.
Sure. So with that, I'll just wrap up this question with this session with one last question. I know you are a Bangalore boy, but there have been recent debates about whether Delhi is a startup capital or Bangalore is a startup capital.
Bengaluru.
What will you? No doubt. All right. Thanks you so much for this great session. It was a great conversation.
Thank you
for being a lovely audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Bengaluru indeed. Mr. Chandrasekhar, I'm going to request you to stay on stage for a little while. Thank you, Surabhi. Mr. Chandrasekhar, I'm going to request you to stay on stage for a little while to give away the first set of awards. The first award category for the evening is for Bootstrap Champ of the Year. The Bootstrap Champ Award, as the name suggests, goes to a company that has built a formidable business without raising any external funding. This year's Bootstrap Champ is a Coimbatore-based company that had the grit and determination to build world-class software products out of a tier 2 city like Coimbatore. The winner, no prizes for guessing, is Kowai.co, and may I call on stage Saravana Kumar, founder and CEO of Kowai.co. Quick question for you. You know, lots of people who work in startups like nightlife, parties, bars, and raucous evenings. What's the nightlife in Coimbatore like?
Yeah, it's an unfair question, I guess. It is not a party town. That's all I can say about it, yeah.
So if you want to eat healthy, go to bed early, and get to work early, Coimbatore is a town for you?
So what I'll say is, it's a healthy lifestyle is what you'll get in tier 2 cities like Coimbatore. It's a good air, a good water, a good climate. Everything is good, basically. Yeah. It's not a party town.
All right. Other than parties, Coimbatore is everything else. Saravana Kumar, congratulations. Chandrasekhar, just one more award to give away. May I request you to stay on stage? Our second award category is called Best on Campus, and as this name suggests, this award goes to a promising company that was founded on a college campus. The winner is FamPay, a provider of payments and financial services to teenagers. Amongst other things, FamPay tackles the eternal problem of pocket money for young people. May I invite the founder of FamPay, Sambhav Jain, onto stage, the co-founder of FamPay. Sambhav, quick question for you. Now, after this award, you're going to be earning a lot more than just pocket money. So all this money that's going to come rolling in, how are you going to manage it?
I guess we have built a good ecosystem. We have a lot of supporters here as well who keep on guiding us on how do we really manage it. So, yeah.
And Nitin Kamath is in the audience. If you need any investment advice, just quickly here.
Yeah, for sure.
Congratulations to FamPay. Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, for doing the honors. and for taking the time to be with us here today. May I now invite the Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Basavaraj Bommai, onto stage to say a few words. Mukhyamantri Avare, can we have you on stage?
Am I looking into the future of India? Say aloud, yes. I need more energy. Thank you. Vaishnaw ji, Rajiv ji, Tejasvi ji, and all my dear friends. You might be wondering what this politician is doing among us. But we are the politicians who drive, whether you like it or not. Somebody asked, what is political science? And the apt answer was, political science is science of all sciences. A scientist can create an atom bomb, but where to use and where not to use is in the hands of President of Russia or a President of United States of America. Therefore, we are talking of ecology, ecosystems. So any political ecosystem which is in tune with the people, which is in tune with the technology, which is in tune with the economics, then you need not look back. Therefore, that's what Rajiv was trying to explain. How few hundred startups were converted into 17,000 startups. It is not created overnight. It has been hard work of all our youngsters. But to give that kind of a platform and that kind of an encouragement is very essential. Each one are the center of energy, but we need something to ignite that energy. And that ignition comes from the policy of a government. That's all we have to do. We have to just ignite. Rest, it is taken by you people. Now, as far as Bangalore is concerned, the first IT company in India was started in Bangalore, Texas Instruments, with their own earthing stations and all, 1984. Why Texas Instruments choose to be Bangalore software? There was a huge base of human talent in technology, in R&D, in innovations. Therefore, pure science is a very, very important aspect of startups. You know better than me, when you want to do something, you go to the pure science. Then you come back to the application science. Therefore, a place where pure science is very strong, the so-called ecosystem where pure science is very strong, it kickstarts the innovation. There are a lot of institutions for R&D innovations. But what is all this startup about? Startup is about few individuals. or a single individual or a few individuals coming together and trying to play a high-tech game and make a lot of money. I know that a lot of startups, without any hang-ups, they do things very easily, which otherwise is a very big challenge for others in the regular system. What we have studied in lateral entries, thinking out of the box, all these are very normal in startups. They are not a special case. And these few individuals are very successful, and it is not surprising to me. Because all the great innovations over the centuries is done by individuals only. The fundamental science has been developed by individual only, not by institutions. You take Einstein, you take Isaac Newton, you take Louis Pasteur, you take any Thomas Alva Edison, you take anybody. They were individuals. Now, why individuals can do miracles? It is because single-minded pursuitness. Whenever there is an institution, it's a group of people. The convergence of energy will dissipate once the goal is reached. But as far as individuals are concerned, there is a single-minded pursuitness. And that is the core strength of all the startups and you guys. Single-minded pursuitness. Am I right? Satyan, don't clap simply. No, I'm proud of New India. I'm proud of Young India. And I'm proud of my Prime Minister because he has created this ecosystem. He correlates with the technology. He correlates with the young people. He connects with almost all new initiatives the country needs. And he is one person who doesn't look even blink a second to take up very big challenges. Therefore, what I feel is that a new India, which is a dream of our Prime Minister and all the people who are involved in it, can showcase these startups. What is New India? Just showcase startups. It is there to see. No words are necessary. And the unicorns are the best offshoots of all this. Now, a lot of startups are converting into unicorns. And the success brings in lot of other initiatives. To become successful is one thing, to handle success is second, and to endure that success is a third thing. And therefore, I have been here just to get energy for myself to start up new initiatives for my state of Karnataka. And I see you people and I see your achievements in different fields. It really enthusiasms me. Therefore, I have written a slogan in my budget, a new Karnataka for New India. And we are trying to do new initiatives. Just to name a few, I decided that we will have 6 integrated, high-tech, innovative cities in 6 different parts of the state. 6, our government engineering college will be upgraded to IITs, almost to the IITs of the country. I was just thinking, my boys will be struggling to go to IITs and we have got just one IIT. So I said, let me create our own IITs. Things have changed. The digital world has changed. You need not have everything in a building. The building concept has gone. Shackles have been removed. The digital world has opened up the entire world into a small, very, very small place. So I have got I'll be having 6 new IITs within 3-4 years. And I have changed the concept of university also. Big building, big offices, vice chancellor, all those things, no. Slim, trim, digital universities. So, there's a paradigm shift of thinking. That is new Karnataka. And we are creating a completely new atmosphere for the startups. The startups, when we recognize the startup, then we'll offer them a place to work, the place to expand. Here, startups will not only kickstart, they have to build on the startups. That is what Bangalore is all about. That's all Karnataka is all about. Therefore, when our Rajiv Chandrasekhar was asked which is a place happening for startups, undoubtedly he said Bangalore, and Bangalore will be the leader. Even in ITs, a lot of people tried, A lot of people said, you government is not doing enough, we'll go there and there. And we allowed them to fly. They came back. Satyan was telling, you guys are forcing us to come here. I was very happy when I heard that. That is the strength of Bengaluru. That is the strength of high-skilled, scientific bent of mind of my boys and my institutions. We have got highest number of R&D international centers in the world, not in this country. Both in government and private sectors. You name the field, it is there. And very shortly, we're going to have a semiconductor plants here. So, the need, whatever the need, is converted into a challenge. And challenge is always met. We are part of the solution. And this government is not playing not to lose. We are playing to win. That's the difference. Therefore, you are all most welcome, outside Bangaloreans who have come. Come join a successful team, be a part of the team. And Bangalore is one which accommodates everybody. You can just not become a team member, you can be a captain of the team also, which will not happen anywhere else. Therefore, technology is a way forward. And I believe economy is not money. Economy is people. Economy is people. If people start working, economy automatically grows. Money can't grow money. Only a hard work can grow. In Kannada, there is a saying, Dudde Dodappa. That means moneyed man is a big man. Dudde Dodappa. Now I have changed it. It is not moneyed man is a big man. I said Dudme Dodappa. That means a man who has got good work, he is a big man, not a moneyed man. Therefore, the entire culture is going to change, and new Karnataka is emerging. This is a sunrise. It has been a sunrise state for a long time. It is going to be a sunrise state. I'm not here to market my state, but it's all about. And many startups have come, and we have got a lot of programs for startups. Just about 2 months back, I have announced startups for young women entrepreneurs outside Bangalore, not in Bangalore. So we are doing a lot of all this kind of innovative policies. I have got R&D policy in place. This is the first state where we have got R&D policy. And already an interim report is there, and that is going to help the startups. I want startups to come like mushrooms all over the country, more so in Karnataka, and change the life of the people. Change the life of the people. It is not just change the, providing some solutions, providing some economic help to certain companies. It's a very limited approach. Change the life of the people. Do something which can change the life of the people for a better living. And that's all it's about. So the world is yours. You can, sky is yours, fly as you can. But always see that you are well rooted to the ground so that whenever you come back, you are well connected and people remember you for the long time. And one thing, it might look little odd here, but I'm just trying to say something. Seeing you all achievers, I remember Swami Vivekananda. It is said that sadhakarge savu antevalla. For achievers, death is not the end. They live beyond the death. That should be the achievement. So what you achieve in life should be in the life of a lot of people, even if you are not there. That's all it's all about. So I am concluding, welcome to Bangalore. I am concluding all the best to all the startups. Start up and grow up. And I just say that technology is a very enduring thing. And man is a one species who has used technology and adaptability. A man, there are species which are bigger than us, faster than us, they have extinguished. Man is the longest survival species on this earth, probably the last one. Why? Because of the adaptability. He lives in 45 degrees centigrade in Sahara. He lives minus 45 in Arctic Circle. He lives in forest. He lives in plains. The adaptability. So, you have to have certain adaptability in your startup ecosystems so that it reaches the people. And I'm sure the present generation is more patriotic than ever before, and my hopes on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bommai, for those inspiring words. We look forward to a new Karnataka. Our third award category is for social enterprise. This award is for a company that went beyond the confines of traditional business metrics to create a truly triple bottom line business. The winner, ladies and gentlemen, is Gen Robotics, a company that uses cutting-edge tech to combat some of India's most deep-rooted social issues like manual scavenging. Not only has Gen Robot deployed its robotic solution with several paying customers, they've also worked on rehabilitating workers who lost their jobs to their robots. Fantastic business. May I invite Arun George of Gen Robotic Innovations to receive the award. Question for you, Mr. Bommai, one more award to give away. So how many more years of anchoring do I have left before you design a robot that can do what I do better, faster, cheaper, more efficiently?
Yeah, I think the future is like, currently the technology is developing and in robotics, AI and all. So it's maybe in matter of years, we can see.
So I better make the most of the next few years then.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Bad news for me, but good news for you. Thank you. That brings us to our next award. This award is for the Comeback Kid of the Year. Now, this award goes to a company that went through tough times but staged a smart recovery. The winner of the Comeback Kid Award is Ixigo. The Economic Times Startup Awards jury was inspired by Alok Bajpai and Rajneesh Kumar's commitment to continue with the same product and not alter course in the face of several adversities, an attribute that they said was the hallmark of a winner in the Comeback Kid category. May I request the Chief Minister to hand over the award to Alok Bajpai. So Alok, my question for you is this. I book a ticket on your portal, I pay you a booking fee, and I get a ticket. Why is it so hard to make money in the travel portal business?
Well, we do. I think you have to go beyond just selling a ticket. Travel is one of the few things where you spend money, but you actually become richer on the other side, right? But most of the travel players seem to be just in the business of selling tickets. I hope we'll change that someday.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you for doing the honors, Mr. Bommai. Thank you very much. We know you're a busy man. We're honored to have you here with us today and inspiring words that we heard from you. Our next speaker is Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw, Minister of Railways, Communications, Electronics and IT, Government of India. Mr. Vaishnaw, may I request you to say a few words to our audience?
Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka, Shri Basavaraj Bommai ji, my colleague Rajiv ji, I think he just left for the airport, probably his son is joining him today from US, MP Tejasvi ji, the team ET, and all my dear friends here. At the outset, let me first congratulate you for making India proud. This is the group which today is talked about all over the world. People are saying there was one startup nation, yes, but today there is a big challenge, big emerging force coming out of India with its epicenter in Bengaluru. So big congratulations to all of you. Friends, I thought that I'll not talk about what you have achieved. That's your achievement. That's the way last 7 years an ecosystem has been built. That's the way the vocabulary has changed. That's the way the culture has changed. Today entrepreneurship, startup, bootstrap, these have become common lingo. College students wants to do something which will make a big difference in people's lives. That's a total fundamental change in the way our country is governed, the way our society thinks. And that's your achievement. That's where we have contributed from the government. But I won't take too much time on that. I'll focus on 5 big opportunities, 5 areas in which a whole series of opportunities will come in the coming months, weeks, years, where you can add your brain power, your enthusiasm, your commitment, your innovative mind. What are these 5 areas? First and foremost is 5G. You are aware the country started on 5G, but because of the pricing issues, 5G could not take off when it was supposed to take off. But in parallel, what happened is what is more exciting. What happened in parallel is Prime Minister Modi ji, he gave a target to all of us, said that, okay, fine, 5G rollout is one big thing. Simultaneously, we need to create our own 5G technology stack. Now, what does that mean? Starting with the core network, the radio network, the telecom equipment required for 5G, the handsets required, the testing ecosystem required, and last and foremost is to have a place on that global table where the standards are done. So how does that connect with you? How does that create opportunities for you? Many. Today, we have the 5G core ready. 4G is fully built. And I wanted to share this with you. Many other companies and other countries, other economies, took years to develop the 4G technology stack. Our country, our team, did it in flat 14 months at a price tag at a cost of just about 30 million US. Just about 30 million US. And that 4G stack is today almost a notch above what the global standards are. Why it's a notch above? Because it's all virtualized. You can use any regular server instead of being forced to use somebody's manufactured equipment, any regular server, and focus on software, which is what a huge, big strength out here is. That 4G now becomes the base. Build upon that, the core which has been developed by a consortium of 11 academic institutions gives us an advantage which is phenomenally big, phenomenally huge. There will be many, many new use cases, things like autonomous networks. I had the joy of mentoring about 7-8 startups in my journey. And one of the startups was in telecom space, where the youngsters, I didn't have any qualms that I guided them. I was just trying to make sure that they are not falling out of the pack. That was the only contribution I made. But they use the humongous data which is available between the handset and the tower. When the handset and the tower communicate, it's like whole lot of parameters, about 200 odd parameters, which continuously get updated, and humongous amount of data is created. So those guys, they use that data and increase the throughput of communication between the tower and the handset. And in places like Mumbai, places like Bangalore, Kolkata, they worked for the telecom companies and reduced call drop rates by some places as much as 80%. So that was the power. So that kind of thinking is now happening. So autonomous networks, throughput optimization, tower device interaction, call integrity, all these items will have, all these subjects will have lots of opportunities for all of you. Machine to machine interaction, the IoT space, will become reality when 5G comes. Backhaul, another startup from Bangalore, they have come up with a solution which is phenomenal. You don't need fiber. The Giga Mesh, I believe they are called. They call their solution Giga Mesh, Gig Mesh. Using certain spectrum bands, you can have gigabits, Gbps speeds of data transfer. So that kind of innovation will have a lot of space when 5G comes. Data compression algorithms will be in great demand. Virtualization will become a major thing for startups to put your brain and make sure that my Professor Sadgopan is sitting here. Vanakkam, sir. Professor Sadgopan taught me at IIT Kanpur. Lots of space for routers. Then cyber security will become a major source of opportunity for all of us. So for startups, with 5G coming, there will be huge set of opportunities where you can put your brains, put your innovative hat, and make sure that lots and lots of new use cases, lots of new solutions come. That is first. Second was about the public digital platforms. The largest public digital platform that all of you have used, and many of you have built your companies around that, the UPI and the Aadhaar authentication network. Many more public digital platforms, many more public stacks are coming up. Health stack, exactly the same philosophy. We build a basic public health stack. Based on that, you build the solutions which are consumer facing, which are B2B facing, which are providing that solution which needs to be provided, and grow, build your companies, have new unicorns, have new startups, have new decacons. Logistics, another huge area where lots and lots of optimization is needed. Again, we'll be building just the public stack, you build the solutions. Agriculture, language translation, all these will form the fundamental base over which AI, over which your B2C, your apps, your companies, your solutions will be built. So that's the second. Third is railways. Traditionally, because of the way railways is structured, startups have been kind of totally away from the railway industry, except the ticketing and except a few IRCTC related. Everywhere else, startups have practically been away. Things have changed. Prime Minister just approved a policy last week where startups will become equal partners for railways growth. It will be a journey where not just providing the solution as in we throw a technology challenge, you come up with a solution. No, not just that. Start with the problem statement, come with the POC, develop the product, build upon that. We will guarantee you investment during your development phase. We will guarantee you buying that product and building your business during that most difficult phase of startup journey. We'll make sure that you become part of the ecosystem. You develop the solutions for India, take it abroad. Huge transportation market is there. It's more than about $2.5 trillion all over the world. That's the kind of opportunity which is there, which will open up. We hope to bring out the first few challenges in the coming weeks itself. Not more than 35 days, as I can promise you. Be ready for it. It's going to be very good challenges, very exciting challenges, and challenges which will give you excellent visibility of revenue, excellent visibility of technology deployment, at least for the first 4 or 5 years, which is what any startup would aspire to. These challenges will have heavy dose of technology. These won't be pure connecting with the customer types, but heavy dose of technology will be there. So look forward to, stay tuned. Within next 20-30 days, you should listen to, you should have those things in front of you. That was third, railways. Fourth is about semiconductors. We all know between the 3-4 cities, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, some parts of Delhi and Gurgaon, practically there are about 40,000 odd design engineers for semiconductors. And they are creating patents for all over the world, all the big companies. Our semiconductor policy, which got published on December 15th last year, has a very major component for design-led manufacturing and design-linked incentive. We call it DLI. So those of you who have not looked up, please look up the website of semiconductor policy. Phenomenal support in terms of tools and equipment, the software tools that you need. Excellent support in terms of your cost of developing, in terms of hand-holding for patents, in terms of finding the market, in terms of proving the solution, in getting the first chip fabricated, in terms of supporting you beyond that. So the response we have got, we were kind of thinking that if we get 7 or 8 respondents in this, we'll be very happy. But the response is phenomenal so far. I think about 15, 16 groups and people who want to have a startup centered around design of semiconductors have already approached, have already registered, are already in talks with us. I think many more can come. We are thinking at least 40 or 50. There is a space of 40 or 50. And the roadmap which Prime Minister has asked us to lay out is for 20 years. So it's a long-term commitment from our side. Come over, that's going to be a huge, huge opportunity for all of you. The fifth and the final opportunity set I would like to present before you is electronics and telecom manufacturing. 10 years, 12 years back, when we talked of electronics manufacturing, there was hardly anything. Today we are already at 75 billion US. Phenomenal number, more than about 2.5 million people are employed in this sector today. And huge diversity. There are plants where close to 60% are women folk. So that kind of diversity is there. That's a sector which is growing double digits CAGR, and the policy tailwinds that we are providing, that's easily going to grow to 250 billion US in coming 5 years. 300 billion is what the industry thinks it can achieve. 250 is the base. And with semiconductor being successful, that 300 can actually become 350. That's the kind of opportunity. Same opportunities in telecom manufacturing. Again, 35 companies have availed the PLI for telecom equipment manufacturing. That provides a huge ecosystem for designers, for people who can provide solutions which is what the consumers require, customers want. They can become the interface between the customers and the manufacturers. That's the fifth and final opportunity. Yes, there are many more opportunities in the EV space, in blockchain, in many more technologies, but these are the 5 where I'm directly associated. So I thought I'll present them before you. Come, avail this opportunity. You have done fabulously well. Use these sectors to become from 80, 90 unicorns to 500, 600 unicorns. Thank you.
May I request you to take a seat? The minister has agreed to take a few questions from the audience today. So we have a few members in the audience who have sent us questions. Our first question is from Kalyan Krishnamurthy, CEO of Flipkart. Kalyan, where are you? Could you just raise your hand? Yeah. There you are. Yeah, go ahead, Kalyan.
Honorable Minister, sir, firstly, congratulations on the election results recently. It's wonderful to see the results.
Kalyan, can I request you to hold the mic up a bit when you talk?
Yes. Yeah. Honorable Minister, sir, this is Kalyan from Flipkart. Firstly, congratulations on the election results recently. It's wonderful news. Sir, like you said, in the last 2 to 3 years, the amount of value generated in the technology startup space in India, it's disproportionate. It's among the highest in the world. And I think this is just the beginning. I think the next 2 to 3 years probably repeats the last 2 to 3 years. When we go through this kind of a disruptive journey, how should we think about things differently? What is the feedback for us? What are your expectations from us as we go through this kind of a unprecedented journey?
I would like to say, startup, the initial phase is the phase when there's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, lots and lots of innovative ideas, working like the way we worked at IIT Kanpur Labs. That kind of stuff is there in the initial phase. As company grows, if I have understood your question well, as company grows, things change. The expectations of investors changes. The expectations of customers changes. All those things change. I would say when the disruption is happening, the way companies are growing, the way you grow, time to adjust yourselves, adjust all of us to the realities which we need to face as we grow. Because you have seen some of the recent events in the startup world. There will be IPOs, there will be expectations from investors, there will be friction between the thought process of the founder and the thought process of the investors. Be prepared for that, prepare yourselves well, and make sure that that transition happens smoothly.
All right, I'm told that our next question comes from Aman Gupta of Boat Lifestyle. Aman, there you are. Go ahead, Aman.
Good evening, Honorable Minister. My question is, while India has banned many notorious Chinese apps, there are large Chinese smartphone and wearable device companies in India who are tracking user behavior and health. How do we control the flow of data happening through hardware to these Chinese companies?
Excellent question. For entire hardware ecosystem, we have developed a trusted source regime. That regime is today applicable for the telecom sector. As we go forward, We can look at other use cases, other applications, other sectors of it. There has to be proper evidence of what we are saying because this is a global world. Whatever we do is challenged in the world forums, and everywhere we have to be sure that what we are doing would stand the scrutiny, the technical scrutiny of the way the economy is today. So if we have proper evidence, if we have a proper good case, then we can include other sectors also. Thank you.
All right, I'm told that our next question comes from Bhavna Suresh, CEO of 10 Club. Bhavna, can we have your question?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. I run a venture called 10 Club. We're 15 months old, so we definitely belong to the high energy, early stage of any lifestyle. My question is around, as India, we have a 5 trillion economy dream. I truly believe we are all going to contribute in some way or the other towards that. So my question is from potentially young founders like me. Our biggest problem is talent, right? It's talent. It is about finding high quality talent and retaining them in India. So from a policy lens, what's being done for the short-term goals of that, and what about the long-term? And I'd like to add one more twist to it, especially after I've come into this room. I mean, I see the gender ratio quite evidently. So to that policy, I think, is there anything being done to even balance that?
Cheat sheets. So thank you for asking that question. I'll give you the exact numbers. See, the talent crunch is real. And we thought that instead of taking this challenge unilaterally, why don't we take it with the industry? So we partnered, government and NASSCOM partnered, and last, I guess, October, we launched the Future Skills Program. And in this Future Skills Program, we focused on 10 different emerging technologies. And we initially took a target of reskilling about 450,000 professionals. And the response has been superb. 700,000 professionals have actually registered for it. Almost 120,000 have already got reskilled. And we believe that this template can really help us solve the talent gap because it's real-time tuned with what the market needs. So as we complete the first phase, we hope to take it up on a much bigger scale. Diversity, I think, in the future skills, I guess it is almost 45%. Let me not be very inaccurate. It's almost 45% women professionals who have joined that. So that will probably change in the next startup event, the course will be different.
All right, thank you for your questions. Thank you, Mr. Vaishnaw. May I now request you to stay on stage to give away the next set of awards. Our next award is for innovation, pure and simple. The award is called Top Innovator, and the winner is a company that is doing stellar work in the area of battery and fuel cell technologies. The winner, ladies and gentlemen, is Log9 Materials. Log9 Materials' future potential to massively disrupt 2 sectors led the jury members to pick them as the winner in the Top Innovator category. We have Akshay Singhal and Karthik Hajela of Log9 Materials. Congratulations, gentlemen. So Akshay and Karthik, the question for you is this. Battery cars are about 100 years old now. They've been around for 100 years. What makes you so confident that they'll succeed this time around?
Because now it's being made for India, in India, by companies like us.
All right, well said, well said. All right, our next award goes to a woman entrepreneur who has shown that anything men can do, women can do better, faster, and more efficiently. The winner, ladies and gentlemen, is Lizzie Chapman, whose company Zest Money has partnered with point-of-sale platforms to make its buy now, pay later solutions available across 75,000 offline stores, in addition to 10,000 online partners. Congratulations, Ms. Chapman. Hi, Lizzie. So the most obvious question for you, what makes India India?
The Kana. I think masala dosa, filter coffee, the best food in the world.
Kana and the Uta, both. Thank you. Congrats. May I now request the Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Basavaraj Bommai, to join Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw in giving out the next awards. Mr. Bommai, can we have you back on stage? Thank you, sir. Our next award is called the Startup of the Year. Now, online food delivery and restaurant platform Zomato was voted as the Economic Times Startup of the Year 2021. Just a few months after it went public on the Indian bourses, Zomato's blockbuster listing, amongst the largest offerings for the Indian capital markets, not only received major institutional capital, but as we all know, stirred up massive interest in retail investors too. Unfortunately, Zomato CEO Deepinder Goyal is unwell today. He could not be with us today. May I invite Surabhi Das from Zomato to receive the award on his behalf. Surabhi? Surabhi, I do believe you have a message from Deepinder for all of us. May I hold the award while you read out the message?
Thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, DP couldn't be here, but on his behalf and on behalf of all the Zomans out there, thank you for selecting us. Here's a short note from DP. The last year has been an amazing learning curve for us. We thank you for the confidence you have shown in our execution, not just in the past 1 year, but in the past few years. We also truly understand that anything meaningful takes decades to build, and we are going to relentlessly focus on building a greatly loved, meaningfully large business in the many, many years to come. Thank you again for this honor.
All right, congrats, Zomato. Our next award category is for COVID-led business transformation. The winner of this award is the Urban Company. The founders of this company were able to significantly grow a high-touch services business amidst a raging pandemic, even as most offline counterparts were severely impacted. Many of us in this room have used their services during the pandemic and have been suitably impressed. May I invite Abhiraj Singh Bhal, co-founder of Urban Company, onto stage. Abhiraj, may I ask you a slightly naughty question? You were earlier Urban Clap, and you changed it to Urban Company. What's the real reason for the name change?
We were going global, and we felt that a name that was a lot more globally acceptable should be chosen. So we chose Urban Company.
All right, congratulations, Urban Company. Mr. Bommai, thank you very much. Mr. Vaishnaw, thank you very much. It's time now for you to go into the audience and get a sense of what everybody in the audience is thinking. So I'm just going to call on a few of you. I have a secret list of names, and I'm going to come to you, so get ready. Yes, Mr. Vaishnaw, certainly. All right, while we say farewell to Minister Vaishnaw and Chief Minister Bommai, I'm going to go into the audience and ask a few questions. I have Mr. V. Vaidyanathan of IDFC First Bank, Mr. Vaidyanathan, there's a news report that you recently gave away a significant chunk of shares to your domestic helpers, your driver and assistant. Why did you do this?
I didn't think so much about these things, but I tell you that, wealth and demat accounts actually it doesn't add much value to ourselves. Money adds value only it goes around. So.
I see Nitin Kamath in the audience. Nitin, any good stock tips?
No stock tips. SIP.
All right. I see Prashant Prakash in the audience. I'm going to go to him next. Prashant, have you seen the show Silicon Valley?
Yeah, of course.
So is it, should it be banned because it's so close to the actual truth?
Hopefully things are getting better, so we'll change the narrative, and there'll be a new Silicon Valley show.
It will be the new Silicon Valley, the Silicon Alley in Bangalore. All right, let me go to Kunal Shah. Kunal, first of all, congrats on the fantastic advertising. But from your advertising, it seems Cred gives away everything for free. How on earth do you make any money?
How do you think we'll make unicorns? We have to just the way elections are one, customer distribution is one in the same way.
All right, well said. Let me go to this side. So why are there so many different brands of soap, so many different brands of clothes, and 2 companies that deliver food?
I guess we've been the only 2 to survive at all.
We have KK, former executive chairman of Mindtree here. Sir, both of us are grey-haired. Too many young people in the audience. What do we do about this? How do we even out this whole startup ecosystem?
I think we should start thinking young.
We should start thinking young. How do we encourage more people? I want a 50 over 50 list on Forbes. How do we do that?
You know what? We should start recognizing not just people above 50, but people about 60 like me who's doing a 3rd innings.
All right, so that's news for the ET team. So we don't want 30 under 30 and 40 under 40. We want 50 over 50, 60 over 60, and 70 over 70. Those are the next power lists that we want. All right, it's time for me to head back to stage and to take you through the next phase of the ET Startup Awards. Right, now this brings us to an extremely interesting turn of events. Can you hear me? Yeah. At the ET Startup Awards 2021, like you can see, we have the who's who of the Indian startup ecosystem here with us. It would be a shame if we didn't hear from them. Good thing then that we have Samida Sharma, ET's editor of Startups and Emerging Business with us today. Samida, can we have you on stage? Welcome, Samida. May I also invite our speakers for our next panel, Nitin Kamath of Zerodha, Lizzie Chapman of Zest Money, Sahil Barua of Delivery, Abhiraj Singh Bhal of Urban Company, and Shekhar Kirani from Axel Partners. Can we have you on stage, gentlemen and lady? You can sit anywhere. Choose any seat of your choice. It's all the same.
Thanks, Suresh. Thank you all of you for joining me here on stage. Sorry, this is what happens when you don't do a physical event for 2 years. But I'm really happy to get back to an in-person event. Thanks a lot, all of you, for joining me here. And very obviously, we are talking about IPOs today. The opportunity for Indian startups to tap the IPO market and how they will transition from private to the public markets. And obviously, the theme sort of is best encapsulated in our winner, Zomato, when it went public last year, and it sort of opened a floodgate for a bunch of other companies to follow, Nykaa, Policy Bazaar, Paytm. Although this year has been far more cautious, and that exuberance has kind of made way for a lot of questions which are being asked. I want to start off, Sahil, I know you're looking at me, don't target me. I'm this one company who's already filed a DRHP. So I have to begin with you. Talk a little about what really goes into a company sort of transitioning from private to public. Are startups in India ready to be questioned, scrutinized on a lot of the things that they've not typically been asked when they were private companies? And what has your experience been since you're so close to going public?
Sure. Is this on? Yeah. All right. You know, whatever I say is purely speculative because we haven't made the transition from being a private company to a public company yet. To your question, I think, at least as delivery, our view is that nothing changes really as you go from being a private company to being a public company. Because it's not really true that private companies don't face scrutiny from their investors and their boards before they go public. You are asked questions about the business model. In fact, I would argue that sometimes private investors ask significantly more sophisticated questions than you would expect from public markets.
Nodding.
Well, he should, he's a venture capitalist. But, so I don't think that changes much. And I think are Indian startups ready? At least the ones that have gone public and the ones who are in the line along with delivery certainly seem ready. I think we're reading a little too much into some of the wobbles of the last 6 or 7 months, which are really more market-driven than anything to do with the companies themselves. And look, their models will evolve and people will start understanding them more. And as that happens, I think, you know, the fact that they were ready will become more apparent than it is right now. Like right now, everyone's too focused on the valuation rather than the businesses. And I think that's what is confusing issues. The one change that I think needs to happen more is something that we did early, and I think we'll see it more, is startups having more active, powerful, independent boards much earlier than they have historically had. I think that, at least for us, has given us a whole different perspective about how to run the company. But your question, are startups ready? I think, yes, they are.
So, Shekhar, I know you were agreeing with Sahil, but we've seen in the past few months a lot of questions being asked, rightly so, and this is not only for companies which are going public, but otherwise as well, you know, on corporate governance, a lot of scrutiny on financial matters, and there is this narrative that, you know, private investors and boards typically keep quiet till the company is raising capital at higher valuation. How do you look at it from an investor's lens, and where are we as an ecosystem to address some of those questions being asked right now?
Yeah, this is a great question, given the context of the current ecosystem where we are growing. Board members are not forensic experts, okay? The question starts with compliance and regulatory framework, starts with the company and starts with the founders and CEO. If founders and CEO decide to defraud employees or customers or investors, not much one can do. So that everybody should understand first. It starts with the founders, starts with the leadership team. The purpose of the board is to educate, guide them so that they get better at this. If the intent is wrong, it's almost impossible to catch.
No, my question was slightly on the investors' role in early stage companies. And do you see that they kind of don't step into you know, correcting a lot of things which can be till a point that, you know, the companies become large and it's sort of then they're on their own?
That's not true. That's not true. What happens is...
Lizzie, you want to come in on this?
I guess, yeah, I do have a slightly controversial opinion on this. I don't think there's anything wrong with companies going public early if it leads to greater scrutiny, especially from a governance perspective. And I think a bit of what we've seen in the last few months has been public markets reacting to governance concerns at companies that, at that scale, frankly, should have had their house in order, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with small companies IPOing at the right time, assuming they have good governance and path to profitability. That's the fundamental.
Yeah. You know, I want to come to Nitin. Obviously, he was asking me, why have you put me on this panel? Because he is a founder who's obviously not, has decided not to go public. If that's not the case, it'll be news. But what's your view? I mean, you're also in the markets, seeing what's happening because You are a trading platform. You're seeing the kind of interest in new age companies. There's a lot of interest from retail, first-time investors. But you, for Zerodha, have decided to stay private. What's the reason? Is it because you don't want to be questioned? You want to stay private because the scrutiny is lesser? What is it?
Yeah. No, I think the problem with our business is there is no predictability, right? At least at the stage we are as a business. So firstly, we don't need the capital. I mean, you go public to raise money. So we've been thankfully profitable, and whatever's money required to grow, the business journeying it out. But even if you had to go public as a growth hack, right? Which is one of those things.
Why do you call it a growth hack?
No, we're a B2C business. If your customer is also your shareholder, potentially you can grow faster. It's a question that I've been wanting to ask someone from Zomato if cost of acquisition has gone down post going public because your shareholder.
If Dipinder was supposed to be on this panel, but unfortunately he's not.
Yeah,
he's
so
not well.
I mean that was a question. I mean that's a question I constantly ask, that if our customers were also our investors in the company, would they help get us more customers faster? So that's how I think of it. But generally, there is no predictability because our performance is completely dependent on how the markets behave. Right, as in over the last 3 or 4 weeks with this volatility in the markets, for example, our new user acquisition is down 25-30%, like month on month, right? And then when you go public, you have to project growth, right? As in you have to put targets and go achieve it. And when it's very tough to do it, I mean, I don't personally like the obligation that brings along, of being able, of putting a target out there which is very tough to achieve, especially in a very unpredictable business like ours. And within the business, especially a financial service firm, it's very easy to missell. So if you put targets, and then you drive your teams to get there, you can potentially missell, which can which takes you 2 steps backwards. You can add a lot of users, but you're really not going forward as a business. So that's essentially how we've been thinking about it at Zerodha. And maybe, one day when there is more predictability in our business is when we will think of an IPO.
So you've not ruled it out?
I mean, yeah, one day in the probably distant future.
So Abhiraj, obviously you've not set any timeline, but you have spoken about going public. Keep aside the current market situation, which like Sahil mentioned, it's sort of happened in the US. It's happening in the broader public market as well. How did you kind of decide that you wanted to go public? You are also a consumer internet business, unlike Sahil's, which is sort of more B2B. What really was the thought process? And to Nitin's point, I mean, how do you kind of decide on going public, considering there'll be this quarter-on-quarter pressure, there'll be a expectation from the market that you turn profitable, etc.
Yeah, Samita, I think the question, sort of the way I see it is, it's a question of when, because the moment you take the first venture capital check, right, the taximeter is down. So in some sense, you've got to return it, and that could either be through a secondary exit or eventually going public. And I think going public is, it's a very broad-based way of creating wealth for your employees, for all the investors. I think beyond governance, 2-3 things are very important, and Nitin spoke about them. One is just predictability. Public markets, as a private company, if you do 96-97% of your annual operating plan, the investors will sort of clap. As a public company, if you miss by 1%, that can be your stock taking a significant beating. So you've got to have very, very strong underlying predictability. Along with that, you have to have scale and, at least a profitability profile, so that people know that you're a real business, you're relevant to lots and lots of consumers. You're not a sort of niche business or a concept business. So that's how we think about it. Internally, we've already started the work. I think adding independent directors helps significantly, and we've recently done that. So that process is on, and that journey is on, and hopefully it'll culminate into not just an IPO, but as being a good, well-run public company, which is more important.
Shekhar, so I want to also talk about India versus US, and who better to talk about Freshworks than you? When it listed last year, it was at 13, 14 billion. Last I checked, it was down to about 5. Tell me, how are you looking at the IPO window, considering most of these new age companies which went public last year, they're all battered and there's been a big crash. Is this dissuading companies which were sort of planning to go, the IPO way, stall, or are they ready to just stay in the private market for a much longer period of time?
Yeah, Samita, great question. From a company perspective, not much changed. They have now $400 million plus annualized. Last quarter, they did 100 million, 40% growth. In a couple of years, they'll be $1 billion company. And the pace at which the company is growing, the TAM, everything is same when they went public. And in every last 2 quarter updates, they have beaten within the plus 2.5% precision of the predicting and durable and certainty level that the Wall Street expects. Having said that, something has changed in the market that Freshworks or any 120 plus companies that went public last year in the US market, right? When the market changes, obviously the companies will not go public. In this year, only one has gone. Last year, 120. This year, only one so far in the US market. That too, some semiconductor company. So if you look at the data, are companies stopping? The answer is no. Companies continues to work towards building durable, world-class, cash-generating businesses. The question of timing is markets doesn't hold for too long because there is a lot of cash. People want to invest. People want to move money from equity to debt, debt to equity. But when the markets are frozen because nobody can underwrite the risk of the public market, as in the US or in India, it is going to take a couple of quarters before the market opens up. The question of multiples is the second part of your question. How do you deal with the multiples? Last year, a lot of companies in India and globally have raised money in private rounds at late stage at a significant multiple than what the public markets are giving today. Now, what it means is you have two choices. Companies have to catch up to those multiples using the current cash on the balance sheet and actually get to the level where they can go on public and raise more money. Or they have to raise at a flat round or a depressed round if they run out of cash. So all companies are readjusting their annual plans in terms of how to use cash and manage growth at any cost to growth in a calculated way, with unit economics compliant and positive, and build the long-term goal of being predictable in their revenues so that when markets open up, they are ready to list.
Sahil, you have filed your DRHP, you got a nod from SEBI. You've obviously held back going public like most other companies. Is this a sort of a longer term plan to stay private for you, or you will go list when the markets are better? He's going to kill me because I didn't prepare him for any of this.
I brought our general counsel here as well. But look, let me talk about why we didn't go public earlier, because that's easier to answer rather than speculating on when we will go public. Our logic was simple. We don't need the money immediately at all. And the second thing is the way we look at it is, if you're an airline pilot and you're flying the plane and you can see turbulence ahead of you, you don't actually put the plane through turbulence unless you absolutely have to, right? You don't want to give your passengers a reasonably good ride. As a company, as a management of the company, we're the pilot and the investors are the people who are on the plane. So our view was there was no point taking them through a bumpy ride in January, February, and March, and having to answer questions that have nothing to do with the business at that point in time, right? And so it made a lot more sense for us to simply wait out. The more information we provide to investors, the more of a track record we're building with them, right? The more credibility we're building with them. Some of our investors, like GIC and Canada Pension Plan, have followed the company for 10 years. So I think we would rather make sure that when we go public, all of the people who we've been speaking to are seeing our numbers, are seeing, sort of the company's economics play out. And at that point in time, when they feel confident enough that we should go public and we hear that from them, we'd be much happier to go public at that point. Right now, when we talk to investors, they say, look, we're really nervous about the way the world is playing out and don't go public. So I would say it isn't as much a delivery choice as it is what we're hearing from the markets. And, that's about all I can say right now. So.
Okay, but does all of this have to do with the valuation that you would get on your listing?
I'd have to be quite naive to say it doesn't, because the fact of the matter is we also have a fiduciary responsibility to our existing shareholders. And fortunately, delivery is not a very complicated business at heart. We're a discounted stream of cash flows, and so you can kind of model out what delivery's valuation will be. The second thing is we expect that as we develop credibility with investors, the other big influence on the value of the company is how risky you perceive it to be. And we expect our cash flows to become less risky with time, and we expect to educate the market about this. When we go public, we want to go public as a company which is well understood, right? So it's not just a question of the valuation alone, it's a question of explaining why you think the company is worth something. But to be perfectly honest, while valuation is one of the factors, it's not an absolutely critical factor for us right now. It's simply that we don't need the capital. It is a bumpy market. We would be completely distracted by... I'll have to go on calls and answer about what I think is going to happen to fuel prices or what's going to happen to Russia and Ukraine and things I have no idea about, which I really don't want to do.
Actually, that's given me a good segue to get in Abhiraj, Lizzie. Why is it that privately held startups are so removed from macro? And is it a good thing? I mean, Sorry. Why should you not know what's happening with fuel prices and the Ukraine and why? Huh? No, I'm not saying. This is a larger question. I'm not referring only to you, Sahil, but this is something that in my decade of covering this space, and Nitin, I want you to come in after that.
No, I don't have that luxury. I mean, I run a lending business. We are purely a business driven only by macro. And actually, we welcome this reality check. The last 2 years have been difficult for us as a sensible business operating in India. Because we care about profitability, we had to stop growing during many parts of the pandemic. That's exactly what our esteemed sponsor would have told us to do as well. Lending is a really, really, really difficult business, and it has to be driven by the macroeconomic environment at all times, which meant we could not grow in an unbridled way, which actually meant private equity did not love our numbers. I welcome the opportunity to be judged by the public markets, because I think what they've shown in the last at least 3 quarters is that positive cash flow never goes out of fashion. We will have themes and trends and storytelling, which is the new thing we're supposed to be very good at. But actually, numbers matter, and public market investors have shown us that. I'm also on the board of a company that doesn't get as much press as the other famous IPOs, which IPO'd, which is IndiaMart. And IndiaMart was actually one of the first tech IPOs. And if anyone had invested in that IPO, they would have made 300% by now. Like, that's even where we sit today, despite the volatility of the last few months. And that's because they have genuinely attractive cash flow month on month, quarter on quarter. So I think this realism is very welcome. It's going to be better for the ecosystem in the long run.
And you and I were discussing how it's actually good for fintech firms and companies which are highly regulated to actually be listed than be private. Nitin, how do you, I mean, you obviously, you're in a business where you're watching what is happening. Macro is so important to public markets. How essential is it for a company like Zerodha, and how do you kind of tune in and not be so removed from some of the macros?
No, I mean, I think the macros affect us more than anything else. I mean, nickel went up 60%, we lost $2 million, you know, so because, you know, our customers, you know, most of our business comes from leverage-based trades. You know, people, you know, take positions in what is called as futures and options contracts. So, so we've lost, I think, $3 or $4 million on the day crude went negative. And you know, so we're always constantly clued in. You know, I mean, I have a bunch of apps that's tracking almost every asset class around the world and every commodity out there. So it makes a large difference. I think, you know, I think, you know, the founders that I know of, you know, at least I can say that they care for the macros. I mean, because they're usually quizzing me on the macros. So maybe, you know, the tech first, I mean, you know, maybe, I don't know, I just, you know, I remember speaking to someone from FamPay some time back, and I think, you know, some of the newer tech-only kind of guys, you know, who don't really need to know the macros, maybe they don't care for the macros, but the older businesses, I think, I'm guessing all of us here care for the macros, you know, what's happening.
No, I mean, it's so important, especially when you move into the public markets, right? Everything sort of changes every day. And Abhiraj, I want to ask you, you know, this question. I've seen that, you know, after the Zomato Nykaa IPO, there were a lot of companies which sort of lined up and said that they want to go public. It seemed like they were trying to catch this momentum and this IPO window. I mean, I don't know, but I remember we reported about you guys also talking about it. Was this momentum driven when you started thinking of doing an IPO, or you were anyway looking to go public at some point and kind of it sped up that whole process when you saw a bunch of these successful IPOs?
Actually, when we spoke last year, Samita, I think we were looking at a timeline of 18 to 24 months. And the reality for, you know, any business is 18 to 24 months in the public markets is a very long time. So the markets can change, and they do change rapidly. So I think nobody wants to, you obviously want to go public when markets are favorable. Nobody wants to go public when there are very strong headwinds. But I think if the business is good and strong, the most a founder can hope for is reasonable markets. You know, as long as they're sort of neutral markets, I think trying to time the market too perfectly is not an exercise that as a builder you want to do. Because eventually you are signing up to be a public company. And that means over the next 10, 15, 20 years, or how many ever decades you're a public company, markets are going to go up, markets are going to go down. That's kind of how financial markets work, right? They always overstretch in the extremes. So if you're going to let that start affecting your decision making, or the way you know, internally talk to folks, or the way you, actually if you're going to start letting that affect your emotions, it's going to be a really turbulent journey for you as a public company. So I would say that you can't completely exclude the macro picture in the timing of it, but it is one of the inputs. You can at best hope for neutral markets, and after that, you're signing up to be a public company. You've got to kind of take the markets and the way they move in your stride.
I'll just move into the regulatory and the overall, you know, how the environment is for Indian startups when they look at IPOs. We've had SEBI come out with fresh set of rules. There's more scrutiny in terms of the OFS component and stuff like that. Shekhar, you want to talk about it, how this is sort of different when Indian companies are listing here vis-a-vis in the US? Yeah. And why is it that, I mean, you've had experience with Freshworks, but is this a trend which will sort of catch up even more, that they will look at the US market?
Yes, it's a great question. The maturity of the two markets are significantly different, right? Our market cap of India is $3.5 trillion. Market cap of US is around $50 trillion, right? And there are material 45 to 50 mutual fund houses in India that matter. They're probably around 3,000. The depth of research about understanding every business model, every unit economics, when you say something, they understand. India is just catching up. So when you look at it, are there elements where they can take advantage of a not so compliant ecosystem? If that is the case, I believe it's better to bring more regulations from SEBI so that great outstanding companies can actually list and demonstrate, because that is so essential for this ecosystem to show that world-class companies that would list, generate cash, show value, so that trust in this modern digital companies is established. In the US, it has been established for ages. And if you look at the top 20 market cap companies, more than half of them are tech companies. That's not the case in India yet.
Yeah.
So it is a way going, and it's responsibility of not only all of us, including SEBI, to build the trust. And it's okay to regulate more.
Thanks, Shekhar. I wanted to get Sahil in. What has been your experience with, the regulators, etc., in terms of when you were filing your DRHP, when you got your nod from SEBI? There has obviously been a lot of thrust to give a push to new age companies, and we've been writing about it as well. How was it like while you were interacting with them? What is the approach that they are taking?
I think the approach that they're taking is conservative, and rightly so. I think just to add to something that Shekhar said, the expectation of a regulator is not that the regulation not be onerous, it's that the regulator be consistent. And what SEBI is trying to do is to establish a consistent set of standards that it can apply to all startups which are going public. And that process is taking some time. And I think that's okay, because when you think about the sheer diversity of companies that's going public, the information that Zomato puts out and the information that Policy Bazaar puts out and the information that Paytm puts out or that Urban Company might or that Delivery might, this is the kind of information that SEBI and investors are not used to seeing. And so I think a conservative approach is probably the right approach at this point in time. They went through a great deal of sort of scrutiny over our documents, and rightly so. Frankly, I think they have a tough job. Most venture capitalists don't have to see these many businesses in this short span of time that SEBI had to. I think if I look at the level of sophistication of the questions they asked, they got better over time, over the 3 or 4 months that we interacted with them. And by the end of it, I think we could have hired some of them. They actually were very, very good at this, good at it. And so I think there's been a lot of, again, sound and fury about how SEBI is getting in the way of companies going public and so on. I think it's the responsibility to do so. And I think in the long term, it's probably good for the companies that are going public to be subjected to that scrutiny. I'll be honest, it's frustrating, but if we're better on at the end of it, then that's fine.
Nitin, since you have such a ringside view of what's happening in the markets, what do you make of the fintech valuation specifically? Because obviously Paytm post its listing, has dropped significantly. There has been an overall correction markedly in, the fintech space. What do you make of it? And is this a sector-specific trend, or it's sort of a more macro overall, correction that's sort of hurting some of these companies?
No, I think it's in sync with what's happening globally, right? As in Robinhood was at $80 billion valuation, now it's at $10 billion. I mean, it's, I think all companies are kind of moving in sync. I think something has changed, fundamentally, which is in terms of expectation of the future. I think the private markets are working at a lag, so you are still seeing people being able to raise money at higher valuations in the private market versus I was actually looking at Coinbase, and it's at 9 times earnings.
Is it? I think it's already starting to show in the private markets as well, right, Shekhar?
I don't know. I mean, at least the news, what you're covering, doesn't seem to say.
It's a little delayed, you know that.
Yeah.
Those deals maybe had closed last year.
Yeah. So no, I think on the market side, I mean, across the globe, all high growth, not yet profitable startups are seeing large haircuts, and we are in sync with that. So I think what has happened though, as a broker to the largest retail broker in the country, is I think there is a sense of, I spend a lot of time interacting with customers and online, and there's a sense of, these companies that come from the startup world maybe can lose money, and which is a bad thing. I mean, Zomato had kind of paved the way for everyone, but I think over the last, and which is, as I said, it's not really fault of some of these companies. It's just a global phenomenon. But I think fingers are getting pointed out at the startup ecosystem, saying, you're coming here, trying to raise money at high valuation, taking away retail investors. To be very honest, only 10 to 15% of the issue is really going, to retail investors. But yeah, that's happening. So I think it will be a slightly challenging, I think, for urban company delivery, etc., to come list in the next 3 to 6 months, unless globally the trends change on this.
Sahil, word of caution. But we have about 5 to 7 minutes. I want to get each one of you to talk a little about, how the Indian playbook for going public is going to be sort of maybe different from the US. Is it going to be, that 6-month window, and then it's sort of going to be another few years of not too many companies going public? Shekhar, your views, how is it going to be different, and will this momentum sustain?
Yeah, so my belief is that momentum will come back, but momentum will always be there for top-notch A-plus companies. But today, market is frozen. If you look at the liquidity in the US market, even if you look at S&P 500 E-minis futures, 50 million was in the Q4 per day. Today it's 5 million. So 10x reduction, which means there are no buyers, no sellers. Everybody is frozen. So first, why they are frozen? They cannot risk. They don't know what the price of an asset is anymore. So until geopolitical problem is solved, and then the interest rate, federal interest rate increase across the globe has to go through, stability has to happen. Then people can price it. Once they price it, the market stabilizes, buyers and sellers will come, and you should see the market moving. This 6 months, some of them are tactical, I would say. Yeah. More bigger question is, when does the money move back into the public market?
Yeah. And just a follow-up to that, Shekhar, are you seeing the impact of that correction also rebalance the valuation in the private market already?
That's a good question. So far, you're seeing the remnant of the investment decisions that were made in Q4, early Jan, closing out right now. So that is finishing it. Now, the late stage crossover funds which had come to India following a lot of growth investments, they are slowing down because their public market positions have taken a big hit. So is it reflecting on late stage? Then if late stage is freezing, then growth stage is also to some extent slowing down. If growth stage is slowing down, little bit of slowdown we are doing in Series B and Series C. From an early stage perspective, I say it's a great time to start. We're all active, checkbooks are open. We just raised a $650 million, so that is very buzzing.
You'll have a bunch of people lining up. Sahil, do you think this IPO window was just a 6-month story for Indian startups?
Yeah, I think you'll continue to see startups go public because good companies are good companies. It's really as simple as that. I think what you'll certainly see is that dodgy companies won't be able to go public, which again is fine. And the second thing I think in India at least is there still are deep pools of capital. What was happening earlier in the IPOs last year was that foreign investors were the ones who were expected to lead the valuation and lead the round, and then others would follow. I think as I look at our own experience, what we're seeing is a lot of Indian funds which are really now sort of asking the questions that foreign investors were earlier. They have the capital, there is the desire. It's an asset class that doesn't exist. Retail investors don't have an opportunity to invest as of now in many of these companies, us included. And so I think while valuations might go up and down, and we'll see where they land up, I think companies will go public.
Great. Lizzie, I know you've not really specifically said anything about going public, so maybe this is your chance to disclose.
Headline. No, we've always said we would love to go public, especially in India, because this is one of the best markets for lending businesses globally. I was an investor in global lending businesses before I started Zest, and India as a market has always been brilliant at valuing lending businesses. We have some of the best management teams, some of the most, predictable cash flows in lending businesses in the world in this country, and that's not going out of fashion. I think what we're seeing is just a reality check in the world, but especially in India, about tech valuations. And just because something has a tech aspect to it doesn't change the fundamentals of a business model. And so to your point about fintech, I think we're going to see some really interesting financial services companies that happen to be tech-powered emerge in the next 2 years, and many will go public and will get a great reception because global investors do love Indian lending companies.
Would you also consider, instead of going public, an M&A kind of a situation?
I think as a founder, that's always less optimal because you do like to keep autonomy. I think you think about what are the right things to do at the right time for your company. But we've never been egotistical about having our name in lights. And so I think if the right opportunities come along, you would always consider them.
Nitin, you obviously have a lot of data that you're looking at for public market investors. The same question was that a short period when that momentum sort of let a lot of these companies go public? Will it sustain? What do you make of how things will sort of pan out in the next 6 to 8 months?
No, I think next 3 to 6 months is tough. I mean, it's just, I know some of my friends who are institutional investors, and I think they'll all wait for this, whatever uncertainty to get, kind of go through, and I think all companies as well, will probably wait out the next 3 to 6 months. So I don't see how any company can really IPO in the next 3 to 6 months. It's very tough. It's like I said, you can't really go to only retail investors and raise money. And also now that there is an LIC IPO, it's going to suck out some liquidity from the ecosystem as well. So with all of this around, I think the next 3 to 6 months not probably a good time to be going public.
Is it something that realistically is worth exploring for Indian startups once the momentum is back, the markets are sort of better off?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zomato actually kind of just opened up everyone to the possibility of like the fact that Indian startups can list on the Indian on the capital markets. Because I remember a lot of times people were asking me questions saying companies which are not profitable can't list, and I had to explain every time saying there is no regulation like that. Companies cannot be profitable and still list on the exchange. So actually, the Zomato IPO is kind of one which opened up saying you don't have to be a profitable startup to list, right? And most of my friends who've been investing publicly for decades didn't know that you don't have to be profitable to list.
Yeah.
So I think there is going to be, if momentum comes back, I'm sure everyone's. I mean, as a stockbroker, we are waiting for Urban Company delivery to list. So we can go sell the IPO as well.
Last word to you, Abhiraj. Time's up, but are you changing your plans, sticking to it? What's it looking like for you?
I think I would agree with Nitin. I think this year, you'd rather just focus on business, continue to grow, let the markets at least come back to being neutral, and then reconsider.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Suresh.
Thank you. Thank you, Samida. Some exciting thoughts on profits, cash flows, business models, and going public. Thank you, speakers, Lizzie, Nitin, Sahil, Abhiraj, and Shekhar. May all of you be smashing successes even when you decide to go public. Quick reminder that if you're tweeting, Instagramming, cooing, or YouTubing, or doing anything social with today's award, use the hashtag #ETStartupAwards. And for those of you who joined in a little late, a quick reminder, keep following basic COVID protocols, wear a mask, wash your hands, and respect other people's personal space. May I now invite Mr. V. Vaidyanathan, Managing Director and CEO of IDFC First Bank, for a special address for our audience. Mr. Vaidyanathan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a great pleasure being here with all of you today. And for all the winners of today's awards, very heartiest congratulations today. This context of this Startup Awards is particularly important in the current geopolitical context because, sometimes you feel that, a country which is maybe out of line with someone else who's providing the services, sometimes you do worry, can they cut off the services sitting back home in the US or in Europe? And then what happens to a country which has got really used to those services? And therefore, for our own country to develop solutions which can serve our country and can abide by the laws of this own country, I think it becomes really very important. And I do hope many of our startups provide those solutions. The other thing is that if you think of many of the global corporations, whether it's Google or Microsoft or Apple and the rest of the organizations, Facebook and all, they've all developed fantastic solutions in their respective countries, and they have, and they are serving many other countries outside. And the people in the respective countries have got used to the services, and then, all the billings from these countries, effectively the wealth is going back home. I do think that our own startups have a really terrific opportunity of creating such solutions can be sold outside the country. And then India also can start getting its own annuity income, like many of these large, trillion-dollar global corporations have got. And it's a real possibility. I was talking to a couple of founders here on the sidelines of this discussion, and one of them are actually talking of going global. And I was very, very happy to see that, okay, like the Googles of the world, we can also get our annuity as streams of income into our country, which makes our country and our citizens rich as well. The other big thing is that as many of us have realized over a period of time, India missed the Industrial Revolution and paid a big price for it in terms of staying poor for many years. And then in some ways, even the Internet Revolution. But certainly the new, when I say Internet Revolution, I mean the search and the social and the retail industries are all US based and serving India. But what I mean is that, hopefully the new ecosystem that's coming up in terms of, the metaverse and the Web 3.0 and the other big technologies, the next virtual technologies coming about, I'm really very, very keen that our country takes the lead and develops the necessary protocols, governance, technologies, entrepreneurship, user interface, talent, skill, and so on, to be able to master those skills and technologies so that we get the benefit of those emerging technologies. The last thing is about how the role of the government of India has been in creation of this large startup awards, and we could hear the ministers speak today. Frankly, it was very, very impressive to hear every of the ministers talk about the fact that they really love this ecosystem, they want to do everything to promote this ecosystem, and also the fact that India has gone about creating the biometric for all the people, a billion of them, and for having bank accounts and having mobiles, for having the UPI infrastructure. And really, this is a platform on which so many technology companies today and fintechs today and e-com delivery companies and all of them are actually creating value because payments have become so frictionless. So really, the role of the government in creating this ecosystem is a very powerful thing, which is often gone unnoticed because we focus on the end consumer. But I do think it's a very significant role the government has played in that. And of course, on top of that, all entrepreneurs have created lots of things on that, and payments and ecosystems and frictionless and UI and interface and journeys and all that. So basically, this is a big role the government has played, and because there is a base to it, and it's not just just by random or by choice, by chance. Therefore, it's a really good chance that on this hotbed of ecosystem created, we can really hope or rather believe that more and more unicorns will get created from our country. This 42 is hopefully just a start what we got last year. About our bank, since many of you may or may not know about our bank actually is a creation by a merger of two institutions. You know, in the mid-90s or so, there was IDFC, which is a very, really good brand and really stood for something, created a lot of infrastructure financing and projects in the country, really known very high for corporate governance and a really good institution, a solid institution. Even Government of India had a stake or has a stake. The other entity was Capital First, which has also got created through over the last 10 years. And really, we started with just a 94 crore rupee loan book, 94 crores in 2010. And just the retail piece, as we speak today, what Capital First grew and what the bank is today, it's close to about 90,000 crores. So you can think that that sort of a growth has happened in the company like literally like 1,000 times. If that's not a mathematically so, but even otherwise on an annual basis, 25-30%. Now, we are financing close to about 500,000 loans every single month. And because now we're a bank, we're a AAA rated on the fixed deposit side and AA rated on a normal long-term financing basis. We're really known for corporate governance. So I think we are investing very, very important, very, very heavily on technology. So to all the startups present here, we want to say that we are investing in all the things about how the customer user interface is going to be, how the journeys are going to be, how the stack is going to be, how the core is going to be. So we're investing very heavily, very importantly in technology. We spend a lot of time thinking about it. We're building some really good stacks. And I do think that we started up now a startup banking proposition, which we believe that we are very, very, very tech focused. And I think that we will be in a position to really give good quality solutions to all the startups for banking. And as far as employees are concerned and customers are concerned, we have really come up with really fantastic propositions. We are one of the few banks in the country, probably the only universal bank providing monthly credit to customers and savings accounts monthly. It's not quarterly. We don't pinch your pocket by through fees, this side and that side and so on. So basically the short point is that we really built a really good quality bank. We think that we spent the last 2-3 years dealing with infrastructure and all that. But I think that's probably been the part of the news. But I think the next 4 or 5 years, you'll really begin to see what an amazing bank we're building. We are very, very happy with what we're building, and I hope all of you will experience the bank in the days to come. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure being a part of this Economic Times Startup Awards. And to all the winners who won today, a very, very hearty congratulations. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vaidyanathan. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some good news, some middling news, and some very good news. I'll go in that order. Now, many of you have been looking forward to hearing from Union Minister Piyush Goyal. He's on his way. He's an extremely busy man, lots of pressing commitments, but he has taken time out to be with us here tonight. That's the good news, is that Mr. Goyal is on his way. The middling news, he's stuck in a spot of traffic. He's on his way. He's about 10 minutes late. Now, the really good news is for the next 10 minutes, we're opening the bar and giving you a break. We're going to call you back in here for a special interaction with Mr. Goyal in 10 minutes. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and we'll see you here in 10 minutes once again.
Guests are welcome to help themselves at the bar and with some refreshments. Till then, we'll just shoot an anchor link.
I'm ready.
Okay. Requesting everyone in the audience to maintain silence. We're just going to shoot a link till then. Thank you. Requesting everyone in the audience to remain silent. Okay, on my cue. And rolling.
Congratulations, Lizzie Chapman. Our next award of the year, no, just go back. Should I do the congrats bit or?
Yeah.
Okay. Just give me a cue again.
And rolling.
Congratulations, Lizzie Chapman. Our next award is the Startup of the Year. Online food delivery and restaurant platform Zomato was voted as the Economic Times Startup of the Year 2021, just a few months after it went public on Indian bourses. Zomato's blockbuster listing, amongst the largest offerings for the Indian capital markets, not only received major institutional capital, but stirred up massive interest in retail investors too. Congratulations to Deepinder Goyal, CEO, Zomato.
Cut.
You want another safety?
This is good. This is good.
You don't need a safety link?
No, this is good. He has it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you all to come back into the ballroom. The next segment of the evening is about to start. Once again, I request...
Chuck.
Suresh, we're good. We don't need this link. It's fine. Because they don't have the speaker outside. They'll just...
oh, there's no...
yeah,
it's not going outside?
And they'll come, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I please request you to take your seats. The next segment of the evening is about to begin. We have Union Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal here with us. He will be in conversation with Bodhisattva Ganguly shortly. Please do take your seats. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Avoid crowding near the entrance. Take your seats. We'll start the next segment of the evening shortly. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's time now for our final fireside chat of the day. May I invite onto stage Bodhisattva Ganguly, Executive Editor of the Economic Times, and Mr. Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce and Industry, Textile, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, onto stage. Mr. Goyal, Bodhi, can we have you on stage? Thank you, Mr. Goyal. We know you had a long flight and you're here. Mr. Goyal, you've been with us for every single edition of the Economic Times Startup Awards, and we couldn't conclude this session without you. Over to you, Modi.
Okay. Thank you, Suresh. First of all, let me thank Mr. Goyal for making it. I know he's had a very long day, including meetings in the morning with the Canadian Trade Minister and so on. So I'm sure it's been a crazy day. So thanks for taking time out. He's been a great supporter of both this program, which he's graced on many other occasions, and of course of the startup sector. So I actually have a long list of questions, almost 10 or 12, but I'm going to ask only 3 or 4 because I know I'm standing between you and the dinner. I'll just ask, so there have been many questions about startups, but I'll take a cue from one of our anchors who said that most or many startup founders were rather innocent about macro factors, whether it's Ukraine and fuel prices and so on. So I'll take a cue from that. I will ask a question on Ukraine also, but I want to ask first about first of all, congratulations on the emphatic victory of the BJP under the leadership of PM Modi in the recent elections. What are the wider lessons that this holds, particularly for the startup sector? Will it become, in terms of your programs like ease of doing business, Atmanirbharta and so on?
Thank you, Bodhi, and my apologies to all of you, to all the award winners and all the participants of today's program. But I was torn between the Canadian minister with whom I've launched the free trade agreement negotiations yesterday after a long hiatus of many, many years. And we had meetings scheduled all through the morning. I was hoping to be able to make it in time for much before I could finally do it, but my sincerest apologies. One thing led to another, and the earliest I could come was now. Thank you very much for the gracious wishes on the election result. I see 2 messages, one for the startups. If you believe in yourself and you have the courage of conviction of what you are doing is right, the world will recognize it, the world will reward you for it. And for all the winners who got rewarded today, in some sense, is a victory of sorts, a recognition of the talent, recognition of the good work they've done. I think the results in the 4 states, in some sense, is a recognition of the work we've been trying to do for several years. The work Prime Minister Modi at the center and Mr. Yogi Adityanath in the state have been doing. And I think it's very rewarding, just like it is very rewarding for all our successful startups, the award winners. It's very rewarding to find the people appreciate what work you're doing. So in that sense, one big message that comes out is stay the course. You're going to have difficulties, you're going to have problems, you're going to have people opposing you, people belittling you, difficulties will come your way, you'll fail once, you'll succeed once. Stay the course, believe in yourself, success is going to be yours. And the message, second message for the country, for the ecosystem is that it re-energizes our own conviction on the path of reform, on the path of good governance, on the path of providing the necessary framework for innovation, for new ideas, encouraging our young boys and girls to be job creators rather than just run after government jobs. So in a sense, on the one hand, it's an endorsement. On the other hand, it vitalizes our energy to do more.
So the Ukraine war has accelerated this trend that increasingly, the world of globalization is sort of the era of globalization from the early 90s, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, is kind of coming to an end. Supply chains are getting disaggregated. So I think this government, as driven by the PLI schemes, has been trying to build up an ecosystem for areas like semiconductors, electronics manufacturing, and so on. 5G technologies, for batteries for the new kinds of electric cars and so on. What are the opportunities that the startup sectors has in these areas?
Well, every opportunity, every one of the sectors you said provides tons of opportunities. In fact, if you ask me, just like we converted COVID and the big crisis in a century, the biggest in the century, into an opportunity with many of our young boys and girls coming up with brilliant, innovative solutions to the problems of the day. To my mind, the disruption that we see in the world today, the demand for resilient supply chains that is evident, particularly amongst the rules-based democratic countries who really want transparency, who want to work in a very organized way and not be kind of vulnerable. We can find so many opportunities even in the current crisis that we are seeing in the world. A simple thing could be the supply chain logistics. India already was at a disadvantage on our logistics chain. The war has shown us the vulnerability. In fact, COVID started it, war has accelerated it. The vulnerability of India on the logistics front, our cost of logistics, our management of logistics, our management of shipping and containers, the containerization of cargo and movement of goods, all of these provide opportunities. I remember how did the pellets come into being? Someday, many, many years ago, must have been somebody who realized that moving goods in and out of godowns and warehouses is so difficult that let's look at the pallet and the pallet system. Gradually, it got into a more formal system where they had the same size of pallet. As we moved up, we got the containerization coming in. And I think each one of these is probably an innovation that has gone up the ladder. Today, we have an opportunity where we will see possibly storage of food grains, the movement of vegetables and fruits, the transport of small volume or small value goods across continents at an affordable price. All of these will need some innovative solutions. We can't mix everything together. You can't move coal and in the same ship move wheat. But can some of you come out with a solution which can make that happen? Because we want to move large quantities of wheat to the world today, an opportunity that came out of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. But you need shipping, you need transportation, you need the logistics for it, and you need solutions to the limitations that we are facing.
There's another, but there, again in the context of the Ukraine war, the combination of possibly rising fuel prices, which might go up in the next few weeks, rising inflation because of the supply chain constraints, which has only been exacerbated, won't that derail the nascent economic recovery?
Short-term pain could also be long-term gain. We've always been import dependent on petrol and diesel or crude oil. For that matter, even on gas in a big way. I think some of our startups will now be looking at innovative ways, and the revolution towards clean tech or the movement out of our dependence on fossil fuel will get accelerated, will get wings. So to my mind, this is the time. It's a wake-up call for the nation, for all of us, and some of you will come up with the ideas to help us achieve better. For example, let's look at the electric vehicle movement. I still remember 6 or 7 years ago when we first floated the thought that can India move electrical in the next 10, 15 years in a big way. At one program, I'd probably said that by 2030, can every new vehicle at least be an electric vehicle? Sounded ludicrous at that point of time. Not anymore. It's something that will get accelerated as we go along. And if we can bring down our import dependence on crude oil, imagine the transformational impact it will have on India's journey to become a prosperous nation or to take prosperity to every single citizen of the country. So maybe the war is like a wake-up call for all of us. It's a wake-up call for us not to be dependent on the world on, let's say, edible oils and accelerate our oilseed mission. It's a wake-up call for us not to be dependent on the world for defense equipment. Can we have more and more of our innovators look at indigenization of defense? So it fits in so beautifully into the Make in India program, launched 8 years ago, into the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, an outcome of COVID-19. Everything seems to be collectively conspiring to help India in its growth objectives.
Okay, two last quick questions. I think you said some time ago in a program that you sort of asked the big Indian companies to invest more in startups because founders were exiting and they were perhaps tempted by valuations. They were selling out to foreign investors. So has there been much of a response to that?
Well, this is a tricky one. I'm damned if I say yes and I'm damned if I say no. But I'm an ambitious person, as many of you know, in terms of very, very aggressive target setting. And I believe that when you set aggressive targets, you get outstanding or extraordinary results. So I had set a very modest target to begin with. It was only $1 billion. I said, let's raise at least $1 billion of domestic capital. I don't know the exact outcome. Maybe our friends here, some of those who've been working with me on the Startup Advisory Council and who had taken it upon themselves that there'll be an outreach. Rajan had promised some effort. I think Oyo had actually put down 100 crores to begin with. But I think I'll also have to get into the act and start making a few phone calls, persuading a few people. But I think very easily, since the $1 billion target was nearly 6-7 months old, I think I'll have to reset the target. And once I reset that, then I'll have to get down onto the act. Just make sure you don't write any adverse articles about any efforts I do to raise domestic capital. But I do think we can easily raise $10 or $15 billion. And to my mind, that should not go into the Series C or D or 3 or 4, whatever. It should be money dedicated, if possible, to the tier 2, 3, 4 cities and towns, particularly at the seed funding stage. Vaidi, I hope you are listening. And I clearly feel that if we were to do that, and if we were to persuade the guys with the big bucks to put in some of that capital with a clawback or at a reasonable rate of return, we could actually get some of our young entrepreneurs own significant chunk of their company before they really get out into the public for listing or really are able to become a unicorn or grow out of the initial phases. Sadly, our young entrepreneurs with the brightest of brains land up getting very small piece of the pie by the time they really grow into something big. And that is what I was hoping that we'll be able to change with the collective effort of everybody. So for all of you winners here, for many of you who are unicorns here, I had suggested just 1%. Currently, our market cap of just the 92 unicorns that we have today is about $350 odd billion, just the 92 unicorns. Imagine if all of them collectively, and I hope some of the foreign funds here who are here won't mind it, but if all of these unicorns or the promoters of that were to look at maybe 1% or 0.5% also being dedicated to the weakest link in the chain with a clawback on very, very low return or reasonably low return, it could actually transform the young boys and girls. After all, look, Oyo came out of Odisha. Paytm came out also of Odisha. I didn't know Odisha could, and these are some of our earliest ones. If you want to go back in history, Vedanta started his career from Bihar. So there are brilliant minds in India, in the remotest parts of India. And I'd love to see a couple of unicorns come out from the northeast. I'd like to see a unicorn from Rameshwaram down south or Kanyakumari. I'd like to see a couple of unicorns from Jammu Kashmir. He may find a solution to really transport apples all over the world. I don't know what he could do. So many possibilities. I'm sitting in Bangalore and driving to this place, and as soon as I land, I see 1 hour, 20 minutes on the Google map. Why did I have to go to the Google map? Why doesn't one of our Indian startups give me an opportunity to get onto his map? And now that we've opened up data to all of you, the maps and all of that, all of this were restrictive policies of so many years which Mr. Modi is opening up consistently. I would have loved to go onto a map from an Indian company. I'd love to see, since I come from Mumbai, and so do you, we both in Mumbai and all the Bangaloreans here face tremendous traffic jams. Now, fortunately, we have a few flyovers both in Mumbai and Bangalore, but that's not enough. And I remember for the last donkey's years, I think 10, 15 years, I've been wondering why we can't have a helicopter on top, particularly in peak hours, monitoring where the bottleneck is and kind of easing the traffic maybe 10 kilometers away, considering the bottleneck far away. That time I remember when I gave that idea, somebody said, how the hell will it work in evening hours, which is the peak hours? But now with drone technologies, I think one of you can come up with a very, very simple, efficient solution. And I wouldn't have had to take over an hour to come over here. That drone would have told the cops or told the system that if we ease the signal maybe at the Palace Road, I would have saved 30 minutes. I don't know, something of that sort. So it's just that our young boys and girls have huge ideas, tremendous innovative skills. They are willing to disrupt existing way of working. And I assure you, the government is listening. And the government wants to be a facilitator to make your ideas happen. And our doors are open 24/7. Some of you may have experienced it. I'll invite the rest of you to try and experience it in the future.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question. You said you were an aggressive person. So the Ministry of Consumer Affairs came up with these draft rules, which some might have found aggressive, some might have supported it. So where are we in terms of the implementation of the draft rules?
It's safer to attend the National Startup Awards function than the ET Awards function. But I love to come here, I promise you. There was every reason today to cancel coming here. But I just wanted to come and just be here to meet and get the energy in this room that you provide. And in a way, that's exactly the situation with the e-commerce rules. We did come out with the e-commerce rules, and I'm glad that we did because I like to have public consultation also. It threw up a lot of new ideas, new thoughts, some limitations in those rules, and some food for thought for all of us in government and bureaucracy. And we're working closely between the Industry Ministry, the Consumer Affairs Ministry, and the Commerce Department in the Commerce and Industry Ministry because they also have an implicit interest for the export potential that will come in with digitalization. So within the three, we are looking at how we can make rules for an organized marketplace model, for an organized regular e-commerce model, how the platform will be differentiated from the regular, literally like the multi-brand retail model, keeping in mind the FDI rules as they are today without tinkering with it, respecting those FDI rules and getting them implemented on the ground. And different ideas are continuously being floated. We have not yet made up our mind what's the best route forward. Do we need a new e-commerce act like many countries have? Do we need to kind of make very benign rules, or do we need to have stricter rules? Can we look at self-regulation? Can the industry come forward and say we are willing to self-regulate? So the interference from the government is minimum and people are willing to stick by the rules, stay within the ambit and spirit of the law rather than trying to find deep valuations out of brilliant interpretation of the law. So I think these are all things that we are still grappling with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please don't play out the aggressive part too much.
Of course not. Thank you so much. So I think I would have loved to ask you some more questions, but I think it's been a long evening. So thank you once again for taking out time and to be with us. May I now request the Suresh to close the program and.
All right. Thank you, both. Mr. Goyal, we're going to ask you to stay on stage for another minute or so. Like I told you, Mr. Piyush Goyal has been with us for every single ET Startup Award since its inception. Thank you for being with us, sir. May I now invite all of today's winners with your trophies to come on stage for our final photo op. All winners with your trophies, please do come up on stage. We have everybody here, all our winners here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the ET Startup Awards 2022. Minister, I'm sorry to cut you off in between. It's been a long day for everybody. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, IDFC First Bank. Thanks also to our hospitality partner, the Leela Bengaluru, research partner Traction, and broadcast partner, ET Now. Once again, if you're going social, use the hashtag ET Startup Awards. Please also do visit the IDFC First Bank calligraphy booth. They'll click your photo, convert it into a calligraphic image for you to keep as a memento of this evening, so please don't miss that. So please join us now for cocktails and dinner. Thank you and see you next year.
Are you a founder of a startup juggling too many hats? Does your calendar look like this? And incoming messages in your inbox look like these? You have calls that never end and 1,000 tasks to complete every day. Oh, but wait, you've also got bills to clear, salaries to pay, and minimum balances to maintain at your bank. Not to mention that check you need to deposit. Believe us when we say, we get it. Slow yes to your banking is not for you, which is why we start